That would be a good cheat meal.
So
Just slamming a whole thing of Honey Nut Cheerios.
We were actually talking about the research involved in the marketing with Cheerios and lowering cholesterol. And
the clinical results are sort of dubious, are they?
Well, it's one of those things where because if you eat more fiber, it helps remove the cholesterol from your bloodstream, right?
Soluble fiber from the oatmeal, right?
Right. So I feel like Cheerios is making this leap. It's like, well, fiber lowers cholesterol. Guess what? Our cereal has fiber. Hence, Cheerios lowers cholesterol. So,
and
there's a couple
funny
commercial because eating grains and high glycemic carbohydrates like that is going to raise your cholesterol. So,
yeah, they probably show that it. I think it's
cause a problem.
It
and
absorbs it from the gut and dispenses with it. Right. That's a lot different than systemic decrease in cholesterol. Yeah.
Well, I think if it removes it, your gut, blood, all that.
Spoken like a scientist, Mike Bledsoe.
It does.
The osmosis.
In today's physiology class, I'm going to tell you about your circulatory system. It's like fucking blood, and stuff goes around, and your heart goes like pumping, like a pump, and then and the more you move, the better it pumps. I don't know.
It sounded really good in my head before it came out of my mouth.
Like most things you say.
So sure, it's physically going to rid your body of cholesterol.
Right.
That's the only way you get rid of cholesterol is by binding to fiber and then pooping
Right.
it out.
Right.
But if you're eating Honey Nut Cheerios in super high volume, you're bound to raise at a minimum your triglycerides will go off the chart. You're just
Right, I'm not sure that the Honey Nut Cheerios. That's what I'm saying. It's like I don't think they did the study with Honey Nut Cheerios.
No.
They took a fiber study and
I'm
then they
signing up for that study, son.
They extrapolated this out to Cheerios.
CTP's with me.
Exactly.
And that's what we're saying is like these. We were talking about research in general and how like research can be really, really funky path because all it takes is
people have faulty
someone to
logic.
make that. Yeah.
Like,
you can
There's a huge leap
run
there.
you can run an investigation.
Well, that's why they're doing it.
And
Or
usually,
how they're doing it.
Yeah, there's always an assumption that there's probably error no matter how well you run a study. So you run a study, even a hugely powered, strong study. There's always a chance that the things you observed aren't real.
right.
And the risk is that you observe something in even if it's fucking a nutritional study at Johns Hopkins with 1,000 people, on its face, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, that would seem very convincing, and it should be respected, and the outcomes of that study should be heavily considered. But they can be terribly wrong. And if you repeat that several times, that investigator keeps working, builds a 10, 20-year career, and assembles some evidence. It all starts to look very convincing. Sort of like with the idea that drinking red wine was good for you because it has these fucking compounds, and those compounds help fight off whatever it is that can cause you to have heart disease. But then that big story broke a couple weeks ago that the guy who led the charge in that research was fraudulating. That's not the word. He was falsifying his data. Fraudulation. He made up a lot of the data. He just he mucked with it.
I got a feeling like when I looked at some of the China study stuff, I kind of got a lot of people were making the same claim there. But Alex was talking about something specific. What were we talking about in regard to research?
I think what were we talking about? We were bringing up that Wheat Belly, that book.
Yeah.
I was reading an article and it was about the book Wheat Belly. It was actually the author. Someone had interviewed him, and basically what he was saying was that the book is very anti-wheat, basically grains in general, and he was saying that they did all these studies about whole grain consumption, and that it's good for you, and that it will lower your cholesterol because it has a lot of fiber, and it's basically good for your health. But they didn't do any studies taking the wheat completely out of the diet. And so what he was saying is that, okay, yeah, you have someone who's eating, processed, white flour, processed foods, and you give them whole grains, yeah, they're going to see a positive health increase. But, I mean, he basically said, well, what about if they didn't have grains? That's like saying, okay, someone who is smoking unfiltered Camels and you gave them filtered cigarettes.
It gets better.
Yeah, of course, their lung capacity is going to get better, but that doesn't mean the filtered cigarettes are any much better.
You got to suck harder on that cigarette now.
Yeah.
It's got that filter.
Yeah,
Lung
so-
capacity.
Or,
Yeah.
or if they couple that with some reasonable attempt at exercise, then it all looks very good.
Right.
It's like in Forks Over Knives when I have these people, they're eating this movie, man. This movie. Oh God, where do you start? the first shocking thing you realize is they have this guy who's like, I don't put any restrictions on what I eat. I eat anything I want. This fucking guy's eating Pop-Tarts and donuts and processed meats every day, 3 times a day. That guy was amazing. What was his cholesterol? Like 1,000? Seriously,
It
what
was
was it?
ridiculous.
Really?
It put you back on your heels. You go, this guy is alive.
Right. That's when those are one of those people that make me think like, man, the human body is amazing.
actually, you know, I actually just saw.
And then they go,
How
what
I
we've got
watched
to
that
do is
movie
we've got to
and
clean up your
I
diet.
don't remember that.
Oh yeah.
So he goes from all this eating to eating a vegan diet, heavy calorie restriction, and starting to exercise. And he loses all this weight and he feels great. He goes, wow, if I knew this back in the day, I would have blah, 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 blah. Whatever he was saying. But there was no attempt to say, is because you removed meat from his diet. By the way, it was processed, tube-formed, nitrate-saturated meats. It wasn't like any sort of, it wasn't even like what you get at a grocery store. It was like, microwave Jimmy Dean sausage patties or some shit this guy was eating every day. But there was no attempt to say, is that the cause, or is it all the process
Well, it's all
carbohydrates
just
as well?
correlation versus causation.
Exactly.
All that. I mean,
You said, my man, that's like the first thing you learn in research design class.
Yeah.
Some of the basic biases and what is that?
That's your timer, Chris. Shut the hell up.
You just got
What was I saying? But to close my point, the danger is when you find a study, especially if you find a study that agrees what you already wanted to believe in the first place.
Yeah.
Confirmational bias. If something tells you what you want to hear, you latch onto it.
and you can design an experiment to make your results.
And if
fit
you're a
what you
researcher who wants to
wanna
prove
see.
something, to put his name out there, you fight for it. Or if you're backed by certain people who are going to fund your research and your career, you're going to push for
Exactly.
it. The thing with science is it takes time. You need 100, you need 200 years actually sometimes to prove some things. Like theory of evolution.
That's why I don't believe in
gravitational
research, man.
You need time. You don't need 10 years, 20 years. You need sometimes a lot longer. So it just takes a lot of time. We don't question gravity because that idea has been tested quite a bit. But when it comes to things like nutritional research, the surface has barely been scratched.
Too new. All right, guys, we're going to take a break real quick, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to be talking to Doug about the fish oils.
No.